Thank you all so much. That encapsulates it for me. That we heard about women's style of leadership. We heard about the opportunity for structural change that the 30% solution can make happen. And I realized listening to Linda at the end that we are in partnership. We're doing this together with women and men around the world, and that's a very exciting place for us to be. I think the cards are being collected now, and they will be brought forward, hopefully. I'm going to go grab one right here. This is the right. Start with this one. Thank you, Holly. Okay, we need to create a new economic measure for prosperity, a replacement for the current GDP that does not measure labor of women at home, caregiving of children, elders, and non-accounting roles. What is the leverage point to make this happen? What needs to shift? I think we're talking about a system of values here. Who would like to start?
Well, I'll start about some efforts that have in fact been tried, which haven't done it yet. As you might know, the person in the audience who put her hand up right away to say that it hasn't been counted. What this is really all about is that the gross national product or the gross domestic product don't cover a lot of the informal work that women do. In this country, it's primarily taking care of children and elders. In other countries, it may be drawing the water and collecting the wood for the fires. And when that's not considered very important enough or to be measured, you know, we do value what we measure, and we measure what we value. So if you don't measure it, it's seen as not having any value. At the time of the Beijing conference 15 years ago, this was one of the major topics. And actually, I negotiated this on behalf of the United States as a delegate there. And the United States was one of the countries that was most opposed to changing this process. Mm-hmm. And it has not changed its position over the years. It has been measured by the United Nations Development Program at various times, and what they found was that women do 66% of all the world's work, if you count in this informal work as well as work in the labor force. So I'm not sure I have a solution for where we go with this because it hasn't been lifted up very high in the intervening 15 years. But in fact, many other countries have tried this. Canada has tried it. Sweden has tried it. We're, again, not thinking ahead in this way to move it forward.
Yeah, I would just add to that. It's not only women, by the way, it's poor people. Poor people give a lot to the informal sector that's never counted, and it's in the billions of dollars across. Two things that I think are I was just at the Beijing Plus 15 meetings have been going on in New York. And there's two conversations that are taking place around this. One is trying to get more progressive economists to speak up and to step forward and talk about this, because it's really progressive economists that are adding this to their equation as we talk about. So that's one of the things that's going on. Number two, it's important that we fund research in this country, because I think what Linda said is so critical, that if it's not written down, it's lost. It's not paid attention to. And there's some interesting things with The Economist. There was a article called the Female Economy in the Harvard Review. There are people who are interested in this now, and I think we have to begin to support, like, the National Center for Women in Research. They are the ones who are putting this work on paper and making a difference. So part of it is really supporting, again, this is money, supporting research in the field, supporting internet conversations, as we're talking about with WIP, so that kind of information can become a part of the everyday language that people are talking about. So it's both traditional research, and it's also blogging and what the WIP is doing around getting that information out. So those are two ways to get information out around this.
And one of the things that I'm just going to add in terms of the 30% solution that's so exciting about this concept is we have an economic system, and Linda, you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but we have an economic system that places obviously a less value on the traditionally feminine things that fall under what is the caring sector. So that's work that both men and women are doing in our society, contributing to the sectors of healthcare and education. They just have less of a value. That's why we are debating healthcare on Capitol Hill and not the funding of prisons and wars. And so I think what's so exciting about this book and this work is that the 30% solution is one way that we can change what we value in this country, because the ideas and the values of women, they become more a part of the conversation.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And here's one quick example that goes with it. You know, women start twice as many businesses as small businesses as men in this country. And it's been true for several decades now. This is not new information. But when we look at what grows our economy, we don't look at the creation of jobs. That's where women actually excel. We look at how much capital is tied up, but we don't look at how many jobs are created. So there's another example, not just about unpaid work, but an example of how if we change the way we looked at things, we get a different set of answers about where we ought to invest our dollars to grow our economy.
Here's a question that someone wrote, that they find that men who are confrontational are called clear and strong. A woman who confronts is called harsh or bitchy. Have you found that to be true, and how do you handle it?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that I haven't had exactly those words thrown at me, but as I said, I don't like to be confrontational, so maybe that's why. But I think if you watch the campaign last year or 2 years ago with Hillary Clinton and how she was described oftentimes when she was doing just what some of her male colleagues had done for years as campaigners, she seemed to get this sort of quick criticism every time she stood up and took a stand in a way, whether you agreed with it or not. It did seem like she was quickly characterized in ways that the men are rarely ever called to task about. And it doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, and I think what's unfortunate is that the model is out there, and I think Linda talks about this in her book a bit, of sort of what it means to be decisive in a leader is, think about it. As we all probably remember, President Bush called himself the decider. I don't know that we all thought he was sort of making the best decisions at times in his decisive mode. And I think sometimes it does take time to sort of resolve issues and think through and hear all the views, and that there are benefits to it. But it is unfortunate that there seems to be sort of a value to being able to get out there and confront topics and take them on. And there is sort of an aggressiveness to it that I think is given a positive sense that probably is unfounded, actually.
Yeah, I think it is a current paradigm, and view. What I have found in my own career is that thinking, and I got to the top of a Fortune 200 company, et cetera. When I changed from sort of breaking down doors, which is one approach, to being water finds its way. So I knew what I wanted to stand for, what I really wanted in terms of a solution, and what I do today. But it's not a matter of necessarily confrontation. You can find your way, and you can make things happen in much more powerful ways, or in much less confrontational ways. And I would suggest that every single person in this room can invent some of those.